Good morning, Glenn Beck Insiders. Welcome to the Torch Insider Show. I am Jason Butchell. Huge show, as you would expect from a Monday morning. Lots and lots to go over. And a lot of you pouring in right now into the comments. David7917, he wins. First poster of the day. Congratulations, David. Haley Orozco, good morning. Torchies. Some guy, sup. Sup to you, some guy. Kenneth, good morning, Jason. Mar-a-Lago incident? Suicide by Secret Service? Glenn's definitely going to talk about the Mar-a-Lago incident. Something crazy. We were in the meeting, and a couple of us meet, Rockstar Ricky and I meet with Glenn right before our normal morning meeting with the entire staff, and we were going through all the news over the weekend. There was a ton of stuff to cover, and the Mar-a-Lago thing came up later in the meeting, like after we had discussed everything else. We were like, how the heck is another crazed gunman sneaking onto Mar-a-Lago one of the final stories we talk about? That's how much stuff was going on in the news, and just scanning through some of this. I mean, is there any bigger story than USA? I knew this game was going to happen. I was very prepared to watch it. I completely forgot, even though it was Canada and the United States, I completely forgot about the game. I got a update on my phone that said the U.S. just went up 1-0, and I canceled everything that I was doing at that time, ran to a TV. What a heck of a game. I cannot wait to hear Glenn's take on this, but I mean, I can't believe that the news was saying this is the first gold since the Miracle on Ice. Did you know that? I had no idea. Producer Matt is a huge hockey fan. He's like going crazy right now still. I mean, it was surreal what was happening. Jack Hughes' speech afterwards, did you see that? The guy was completely busted up, missing teeth, blood all over him, and he's like, man, I'm just glad to be America. I'm just so proud to be American. That was one of the coolest experiences, Olympic experiences, that I've had in my entire life. I mean, it was just, no matter what the craziness of the news was happening, and there was a lot yesterday, and Glenn's going to go into all of it, that right there took the cake. It was just such a cool thing to witness, such a cool thing to experience. Imagine being there. Oh, my gosh. Speaking of all the news, chaos, absolute chaos in Mexico. I've got family, actually, that live in Mexico. I was looking at embassy reports firing off at random from the U.S. State Department saying, if you are an American, if you're in these areas, and there were red spots on the map popping up all over the place. They just said shelter in place, wait for further instructions, watch the news. It's as if they didn't even know what was about to happen. Glenn's got a lot to say about that. That's going to come up in hour one. At the bottom of hour one, we're also going to have Brandon Darby. If you remember, Glenn did a podcast with Brandon Darby, and he talked about these various cartels. He actually mentions El Mencho, the guy that the Mexican government, with our help, went to go take out. He's got a lot to say about that as well. That's going to be in hour one. A lot of that stuff going on, and it also parallels a lot with what's happening in Iran right now. A lot of similarities right there. There's some more updates on Iran. I don't even know if Glenn's going to get to that today. We'll see. If not, if we can't, then I'm going to go with you over that with you later in the show. Early voting trends in Texas. I think that we're going to touch on that a little bit. I'm not sure if you guys have seen this or not. I want to pull this up from Scott Pressler. Producer Matt, do we even have time to pull this up? I think we do. This is a tweet from Scott Pressler. It was yesterday at some point. And, actually, we do not have that. But we will. Hang on just 1 second. Anyway, there's this tweet from Scott Pressler. He said, if Texas falls, the nation falls. This is early voting as of March 3rd. There we go. So through week one of early voting in Texas, the gap between Democrats and Republican primary ballots cast is widening at an accelerated pace. Democrats, this is not a trend that we've seen in Texas, I don't think really ever, at least not since maybe the late 80s, early 90s. Democrats are outvoting in early voting Republicans by over 100,000 votes. Is this a trend that's going to be carbon copied all over the country? This is something dangerous. This is something we need to keep our eyes on. 30 seconds. We have that. We have, we have tariffs. What happens next? Justice Kavanaugh wrote pretty much the blueprint on what the president should do now after that ruling. But I think the president was already prepared for that, possibly what's going to happen with that. And then finally, the crazed guy at Mar-a-Lago. How is that the final story that we were talking about? There is a ton to go over. Glenn's going to get to all of it, but I think we start with Mexico, and it starts right now.
Of entertainment, enlightenment, and empowerment. This is the Glenn Beck Program.
Glenn Beck is on!
Hello, America. Gee, is there anything going on? I gotta think of anything. And by the way, if you happen to be watching on the Torch, Canada, I'm not trying to rub it in. I'm just saying. We're going to talk about hockey coming up in just... Well, I can't wait. Let's put it that way. We'll talk about that coming up in just a little while. But first, I think maybe we should probably talk about what's happening in Mexico, what's happening with Iran, the Mar-a-Lago shooter. It was 20 minutes into our meeting today when I finally said, okay, let's get to the Mar-a-Lago shooter. I mean, that's how normal that has become now, and that's how big everything else in the news is. I heard that yesterday, and I thought, well, that's the thing we're going to be talking about tomorrow. No, I'll squeeze that in if we can because of all the other big news. And State of the Union is tomorrow. What does the president have to do with the State of the Union? Oh, and by the way, New York City is getting up to 2 feet of snow. That's what they're expecting today, up to 2 feet of snow. Well, the good news is, New York City, you have the mayor that is going to be able to take care of that for you. Oh, my gosh. The snow cleanup in New York is going to be so easy. By the way, did you see AOC over the weekend talking about snow in New York? She said, I can't believe I have to explain this to so many of you who watch me, but I keep getting these things. The snow isn't even cleaned up from last time. She said, you know, snow doesn't melt at 28 degrees. She had to explain to her audience the physics of snow meltage. Oh, we're doomed. We're doomed if these people take over the world. All right, let's begin with Mexico in 60 seconds. First, let me tell you about Patriot Mobile. If you live in a free country, you know, one thing you can count on is that someone, somewhere, is working overtime to chip away at that freedom. That is the price of liberty. It has to be defended. It has to be argued for. It has to be fought for, you know, in 1,000 little ways every single day. What you don't expect is that you might be financing the other side without even noticing it. You pay your phone bill every month, but behind the scenes, a portion of that money can be funneled into causes and organizations that stand in direct opposition to the values that you hold, the rights you cherish, you know, the country you want to leave to your kids. That's the part that really hurts. Patriot Mobile was built to fix that problem. The same nationwide coverage that you get on all of the big guys, plus competitive pricing, real customer service, and the fundamental difference is they support the First and Second Amendments. They support all of the amendments. Sanctity of life, our veterans, our cops, the principles this country was founded on. So go to patriotmobile.com/Beck or call 972-PATRIOT. Use the promo code Beck. Get a free month of service now. It's patriotmobile.com/Beck or call 972-PATRIOT. Yes, I am. Okay. Woo! Good news. It's not like it's spring vacation week. Oops, it is. My daughter actually called me last night and said, Dad, I think I want to go to Mexico. I said, are you joking? She said, what do you mean? And I said, have you seen what's happening in Mexico? This is late last night. She's like, yeah, but that's going to blow. I'm like, no, you're not going to Mexico. In fact, after that comment, I don't think you're going to leave the house. I don't think I'm going to let you go out of the house today. What do you mean you're going to Mexico? You're not going to Mexico. Mexico is a failed narco state, period. Now, what happened? If you happen to watch a podcast that I did, Ricky, how long ago? 6 months ago?
Last April. I love your timeline, though.
Last April. I have no sense of time anymore. Anyway, Brandon Darby was on, and he is a guy who has been undercover and been all throughout the narco state in Mexico. And we spoke specifically about this particular cartel and henchman that they just killed, El Mencho. This guy is really, really dark and very different. He didn't inherit the power. He engineered the power. He was a local police officer in Mexico for a while. And he learned the system, and he learned all of the weak points. And then he turned around and used that knowledge not to defend the state, but to hollow it out. The chaos that happened from the older cartels splintering and failing, he came in and he built something new, something faster, something younger, and something far more aggressive. It's called the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG. If you think of, drug cartels, and you think of them as drug traffickers, with pickup trucks and rifles, you're thinking, so 1995. This is incredibly different. This is a paramilitary organization. I mean, look at what they're doing right now. They're setting planes on fire. They've shot a helicopter out of the sky. They're just setting... Puerto Vallarta is on fire today, and it's happening all over Mexico. They have armored vehicles. They have military-grade weapons, rocket-propelled grenades, drones that can drop explosives. It's bad. In 2015, I think they shot down their first military helicopter from Mexico. Let that sink in. That's not gang violence. That's an insurgency. And that was 2016, and they're still standing. And they expanded into most Mexican states. They have a distribution network all across Mexico and here in the United States, all 50 states. They're not just border towns. It's Chicago, Los Angeles, Atlanta, New York. And this isn't theoretical reach. This is logistical. They have warehouses, couriers, front businesses, money laundering pipelines, and they are the most brutal of the brutal. In Mexico, there are mass graves, public hangings from overpasses, entire towns terrorized into silence. Now, when we had Brandon Darby on, he talked about this, and he talked about how efficient they are, because terror is very, very efficient. That's why they're so violent. When he was on with us, he talked about they're protected. They're protected by the head of their military, Mexican military, kind of their Pete Hegseth. Well, wait a minute. If they're protected, how did this happen? Well, apparently the news is the president didn't tell the Secretary of Defense. Their president didn't tell the Secretary of Defense. This is a country in chaos, okay? And if you look, I'm just looking, they're setting everything on fire in Mexico. And that's because, like I said, terror is efficient. You make one horrifying example. If you make it horrifying enough, you don't have to fight, 10 battles later. So when Brandon was on, he also talked to me about the rumors that they are part of the Santa Muerte occult. This is, some say a devil worship thing. In this particular cartel, shrines, rituals, all of this stuff that of this folk religion. I don't know if it's devil worship. I mean, it seems like it.
I mean, they say there's no credible evidence of it, that this is some theological cult. Here is what's true. This group normalizes and celebrates death and violence. And when you wrap murder in symbols of inevitability, you're creating something spiritually rotten to the core. I don't know if you need horns or candles for any of that, but you're celebrating death. All you need is an indifference to human life. This is another death cult. I want you just to look at the patterns that we have here. You have the pattern of the death cult up in Canada. Now they're saying you don't even need a parent's permission to kill the child. That's in Maine. We have this death cult here in America, this, shouting, death to all Jews. We have a death cult that is taken a hold, honestly. I'm sorry if you voted Democrat, but it's true. Your party has been taken over by a death cult. I mean, how do you explain what's happening on the streets? And I'm going to get into that here in just a second. Tied to this, you have the death cult of the cartels. You have the death cult in the Middle East. You have the death cult of, Islamism. It's a death cult. Which are you for, life or death? This is a death cult, and they are setting Mexico on fire. Reports of a major security operation that was targeting the cartel leadership immediately triggered all this retaliation. They had highway blockades. They set vehicles on fire. They set a plane on fire, shut down the airport, coordinated disruptions. I mean, all to show the same thing. You think you hit the head? Well, you might have hit the head, but the body's still alive, and the body is thrashing. This is what happens when a criminal organization embeds itself into the economic bloodstream of a country. This country, Mexico, is a failed narco state. You need to understand that. It's not a friend to the United States. It is a narco state. And by arresting a lot of these people and then going in and killing these people, you've destabilized an entire ecosystem. Okay? And power vacuums are really, really dangerous. When a dominant cartel leader is weakened or disappears or is killed, the rivals move. The factions fracture. Violence spikes before it's settled. Okay? This is why you don't want your kids traveling anywhere. No Americans should be in Mexico. Get on a plane and come back. Whoever you know that's in Mexico, tell them that. Get out of there. Now, the instability that is happening, you can see it. Tourist zones the cartels are sending a message to the government and to our government as well. The violence is not aimed at tourists, but nobody is checking passports right now. So the thing that you need to be aware of, and here's our first stop on the train of POTUS yesterday with the State of the Union. What is he going to say? What does he need to say? Here's your first stop. The Democrats have defunded the Department of Homeland Security. This cartel has a distribution network in all 50 states. They're not battalions marching down Main Street, but they're cells, they're facilitators, they're traffickers, they're associates, they're believers, and this is a death cult. The federal government estimates that the cartel's membership in Mexico is in the tens of thousands, and thousands of connected operatives and distributors here in the United States. This is not a border problem anymore. Thank you, Joe Biden. Thank you for all of those who are saying, we don't get rid of anybody who's coming across. There is no such thing as a border. Well, you're going to wish there was a border soon. This is a supply chain problem. This is a demand problem, a corruption problem, a sovereignty problem. Okay? And cartels, how do they thrive? How does a cartel thrive? A cartel thrives. A cartel establishes itself and gets legs underneath it when institutions weaken. They thrive where corruption is tolerated. They thrive in places where citizens lose trust. They thrive when violence becomes background noise. Does that sound familiar to any place in America? El Mencho, he built his empire not just with guns, but with the understanding that fear spreads faster than reform. So the question should not be, who is this guy? The question is, what system in Mexico allowed him to rise? And do we have that same system here now? What are we doing to fix those systems? Or are we just arguing about hashtags while the next version of this guy studies the same weakness in us? You remove a tyrant and you have a few minutes to celebrate. But if you remove the conditions that created that tyrant, you change the future. If we don't do the second thing, the first is going to be a recurring headline, and we're in deep trouble. More in just a second. Stand by. First, let me tell you about our sponsor. It's Rapid Radios. If you had to coordinate something really important in the next 60 seconds, how confident that your current tools would slow you down? I mean, really think about it. If you needed to reach your family across a crowded event, your team across a work site, even if it crosses state lines, your neighbors during an emergency, would it be instant and clear, or would you be staring at a screen waiting for a bar to appear, a call to connect, or a message to finally go through? We've all gotten used to those annoying little delays in our communication, but in moments that actually matter, annoying turns into unacceptable. Rapid radios are built for those moments. They're not complex to set it up. You take them out of the box, you turn them on, and you're connected. Whether you're managing an event, running a business, traveling with family, or just want a backup plan that doesn't depend on everything going perfectly, Rapid Radios gives you direct push-to-talk communication when you need it most. The new Rad 1 is officially live. Head on over to rapidradios.com. Get the radio that's built for real life. Communication redefined. Only at rapidradios.com. That's rapidradios.com. 10-second station ID.
Three singers, two songs, one unforgettable performance. Do you have what it takes? Show us at glennbeck.com/contest.
I got to tell you, I heard one of the singers today that has volunteered their time to sing at the Statue of Liberty, and this girl is amazing, has great potential. But you're going to decide. If you are a Torch member, we're going to play some of the finalists, and then you get to decide on who it is that actually wins. Just go to glennbeck.com/torch. We're going to be up at the Statue of Liberty on May 2nd. It is going to be something really amazing, part of America 250. You'll be able to watch it live at glennbeck.com/torch as well. Jason, what have I missed on the Mexican story here?
I think you got pretty much all of it there. I think that it's very important, and a lot of the insiders are talking about how not knowing whether they can trust the president of Mexico, not knowing whether they can trust the government of Mexico. I remember I was just looking through Glen AI right now. We did a story or a show back in 2024 where you highlighted a Department of Justice indictment against the head of Mexico's FBI. He was actually sent down. This was like around 2023. Mm-hmm. He was sent down to take care of it. Say, okay, I'm establishing authority. I'm going to take care of this. We're going to end this cartel problem. Well, the problem is later they found out that he was actually taking bribes from the Sinaloa cartel. He was in on it. So it seems like whack-a-mole over there, and you don't know who in their government. I mean, how do you have a full-on fortified compound in this day and age with advanced military weaponry for these cartels, and the officials in Mexico know nothing about it? It makes absolutely zero sense.
Yeah, they know exactly. Did you see did you hear the audio tape that I sent you last night? I said we can't play it today because of the language. Well, it's in Spanish. No, it's not only in Spanish, but he uses the F word like every 3 words. And it's this guy on the phone with the government and the police saying, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're all on my payroll. Back up. Knock this off, or I'll kill you myself. The arrogance of this guy. Now, this is not from this particular time. This is from another time when they were trying to, come in, and the police backed off. And you would not believe, they were calling him, yes, sir, yes, sir. By the end, the police were saying, yes, sir, yes, sir.
Does this remind you of the dynamic in some of our American cities between violent insurgents and insurrectionists and how they intimidate our own police forces?
Oh, yeah. I mean, look at the no-go zones in Mexico now, and look at our no-go zones. I mean, you have Seattle, Portland, Chicago, no-go zones, Los Angeles. New York's going to be a nightmare soon, an absolute nightmare, And Trump is given the way to fix it, but are they going to? I doubt it. I mean, look what he did to Washington, D.C. I mean, he cleaned that thing up pretty quickly. Jason, is this group tied in at all to Hezbollah? Do we know?
Not directly. No. There could be indirect overlapping funding or use of routes, and I would not doubt to see that at all. And that gets really, really scary when you realize a lot of these people that are coming across the border, the cartels own the border. They're the ones that take people across. So if there are overlaps, they're the ones that could easily send them across, whether that be terrorists, cartel members. And we just had 4 years of the Biden administration saying, let them in, let them go.
We have thousands of these cartel members doing work in our cities here in America, and maybe as many as 10,000 Hezbollah members. More in just a minute. All right, let me tell you about our sponsor.
NMLS 182334, NMLSConsumerAccess.org. APR for rates in the 5 starts at 6.799% for well-qualified borrowers. Call 800-906-2440 for details about credit costs and terms.
It's really hard to be really present with your family when part of your mind is running through payment scenarios in the background. You're at the dinner table, you're thinking about interest rates, minimum payments, how long it's going to take you to dig out, and you're nodding along to a story while part of you is calculating, what next month is going to look like. That's horrible. That mental noise, it's exhausting. High interest debt follows you into rooms, where it doesn't belong. Family time, weekends, moments that are supposed to feel light. American financing helps you step back and look at the bigger picture. If you're a homeowner, you have options. You can consolidate that debt or lower your monthly payments by tapping into your home's equity without extending your loan into the retirement years. The goal isn't, a different number on paper. It's a little more breathing room every month, a little less background stress, the ability to sit at that table and actually be there. So call AmericanFinancing.net. Do it now. 800-906-2440, 800-906-2440.
1 week left to lock in your Torch founding membership price for life. Join a community of like-minded people who want to fight for truth. GlennBeck.com/torch.
Welcome back, Glenn Beck Insiders and the Torch Insider Show. I am Jason Butchell. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, coming up very soon, we have Brandon Darby. He's going to go in further into everything revolving around these cartels, what it means for us, possibly their connections with some people in the government. I'm going to get further into that right now, actually, because I'm looking more through this show that we did back in 2024. And this is just straight scary, everything that's involved here, what it means to us. I want to say right now, though, if you're on another platform, if you're watching, please consider to go over to glennbeck.com. Consider subscribing to us. Tons of extra perks that are going to be involved. You only have a few days left to become a founding member. You want to become a founding member, but you also want to get access into the insider feed here. Get involved in some of the debates. I'm going to read some of your comments right now, but you want to do that right now. Convert over. Drop us a line right when you get into the insider feed. Let us know you converted over. There will be a lot of insiders there that will be very happy that you're there and very interested and ready to engage with you. So go over to glennbeck.com/torch and subscribe, please. Brandon Darby, as I said, is coming up right in maybe about 3-4 minutes, something like that. He'll continue this conversation. I want to go over to some of your comments, and exactly because you're right where I'm at on this, right where this goes into a little bit of additional information. This is also why you want to convert over. We go in way deeper into some of these topics that Glenn's talking about, but it happens where you would normally see commercials, but you're not going to get commercials. We're going to go deeper into everything Glenn's talking about and set up where he's going next. So just super quick, Benjamin said Mexico cartels are basically doing guerrilla warfare. Basically doing guerrilla warfare, that's true. In some cases, it's even further than that. They've established territory. They've got military cutting-edge technology. They can actually shut down air traffic because they have heat-seeking shoulder-fired missiles where they could take out airplanes, commercial airplanes. It's nuts. El Mencho took out a military helicopter at one point. He's basically considered untouchable until now. It's just wild. Darkstar, I am concerned about this spilling across the border. Boca Chica is not that far away from the Mexican border. John Carmichael, what is scary is that the drug cartels are living in our cities and can activate at any time. What happened in Mexico can happen here. And Jen in Colorado, the Mexican president is in on all of it. The problem is you don't know who in the Mexican government is in on it. I just talked about this Department of Justice. Producer Matt, throw this up, please, sir. I just talked about this indictment from the Department of Justice. This is what you can Google this, check it out for yourself. This is the actual indictment of this ex-Mexican law enforcement. He was the highest-ranking law enforcement official in Mexico at the time. This is in 2023. He was sent down to try and take care of everything that was happening with the cartels in Mexico. He was going to be the guy that was, he was clean as a whistle. He was sharp. He was locked on. He was the man. He was going to go down and take care of this. Basically considered Cash Patel, I guess, equivalent in their system as far as who he was and what his job was. And they found out that he was taking bribes from the Sinaloa cartel. It seems like every single person is tangled up in this web. And when you talk about some of the, who was it? A couple of the commenters were talking about how this could spill over into American cities and what that would mean here. And that's a very, very legitimate concern. For far too long, we have not balanced immediate security with security overseas. Like right now, we have an armada about ready to do something Connecticut looks like with Iran. But for far too long, the President Trump administration, they've been different. They've been taking care of drug traffickers, cartel people coming from Venezuela, striking that area, locking that area down as our hemisphere, the Western hemisphere. They are fixing or starting to fix that imbalance. But one of our biggest is right on our own border. And this is nuts. I want to pull this up, Producer Matt, if we've got the time. This is another thing that we found. This is in mainstream news reporting, but it's just wild when you read about this. I'm hoping you can read this. But this is from the Federation for American Immigration Reform. And they were talking about how, so we all know that the cartel, their biggest moneymaker right now is human. They're making way more money taking humans across the border. It's safer. They don't have to worry about losing product. They make their people that they smuggle pay in advance. So before when cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, whatever they were bringing over narcotics-wise, they would have to worry about losing their product and not actually getting the money. They would just lose the money. Well, now they get money beforehand from the people they want to traffic over the border. They already make their money, and it's a never-ending stream of people that they can bring over. So I'm going to read you this. This is a strategy, a policy from the Mexican government. It says, worse yet, the Mexican government has long issued transit visas to migrants, granting them 30 days to cross through the country to the United States border. So they're incentivizing and making a system that's legal within the country for this mass illegal migration thing to happen coming from all parts of the world, the Middle East, China, Russia, everywhere, other places in South America, come up through South America and get across the border. Now, what are they doing? They know exactly what they're doing because who controls the border? The cartels do. They are knowingly and purposely making the cartels rich off of this. Seems like the collusion goes way deeper than it's been reported. Here's Glenn with Darby coming up.
Brandon Darby is joining us. He is the editor-in-chief for Breitbart Texas. He is also Breitbart Cartel Chronicle co-founder and director. He was on with me in April. And in April, we talked about this particular cartel and the head. And he said, the United States isn't serious unless we get this guy. But this guy is protected by their the Mexican Secretary of Defense. Well, apparently that has changed. So we wanted to bring Brandon on. First of all, Brandon, you've been reporting on this for years and years, if not decades. Did you ever think this day would come?
No. And Glenn, thank you for having me on. Good morning to you and your listeners. I am super excited. I did not expect this. I believed the Trump administration when they were warning Mexico. They said basically, hey, you're going to get this guy, you're going to take this seriously, or we're going to take it seriously without your consent. And I thought that that's probably what would end up happening. I did not expect Mexico to play ball and actually help. No.
So why? What do you think the president said because I don't think the president of Mexico is a fan of America, and certainly not a fan of Donald Trump's. What did he say, do you think, that got them to act on this? Because this is a really big deal.
Right. So I think my best estimation at this point of what happened was that the Mexican president, Gloria Sheinbaum, knew about this, but that the rest of her cabinet did not. I know that roughly, was it probably February 15th or so, Navy SEALs began to train a group within the Mexican Army, Sedena, for a specific training that it was obscure, no one knew what it was about. Well, it turns out this is what it was about. So I know that those Mexican military folks were sequestered, so their phones, any mechanism they had to communicate with the outside world was taken from them, and they did this operation. The Mexican government did this operation. So I think that it's very well documented. The current Secretary of Defense for Mexico being, heavily connected with El Mencho. So obviously, they didn't know. So it was kept very secret. There's a possibility that this was done, without the approval of the Mexican president, but she is kind of running a victory lap so far. So I don't think that's the case. I think it really is a situation. If we look at the history, every time the U.S. has found El Mencho and tried to work with counterparts in Mexico to get him, El Mencho was tipped off and was told, hey, they're about to get you. So he would be missing or he would be gone. And this time that did not happen. This time it was kept close to the chest and they were able to pull it off. And now he's gone. I question the narrative that El Mencho and two others were, injured and then were being flown to Mexico City and they all happened to die on the helicopter ride to Mexico City, right? Like I question that narrative. I think that he was probably gonna die. He was probably killed. They probably decided like, hey, if we let this guy, in our system, he is so connected that he's gonna get out. He's gonna be able to get out and kill our families. So I think they killed him. That's the most likely scenario. And now we are in a very different stage, as I've said before. If someone this powerful, the top of the top, can be taken out, it tells everyone in Mexico who's involved in cartels that they can also be gotten and that they better keep it in check or they might be.
What does it mean for the president of Mexico? Because she could have done this herself long ago. This obviously is she's kowtowing to Donald Trump, or not.
Absolutely. Well, so if you look at the social media statements of Mexico's leading politicians and Mexico's leading journalists, they're doing everything they can to take credit away from Trump and the Trump administration and the Trump administration's approach. They're saying that this was, another person in the administration who pushed this. Trump had nothing to do with it, but that's not true. What happened is that
let's let them
Donald
believe
Trump,
that's true.
Yes, whatever they want to say, and I don't understand. I'm going to be honest with you. It's very difficult for me to understand the liberal mind, even though once when I was younger, I was one of them. They still just blow my mind with it blows my mind, right? The logic sometimes blows my mind, but
the mental gymnastics.
Okay. The gymnastics blows my mind that we, folks like you and I try to, and our movement holds us accountable to be intellectually consistent, right? That's okay. That they do it differently. That's fine. That's their business. But, what happened here is that Trump began to hit narco boats, showing that he was willing to do things that had not been done prior. Trump took out Maduro. He went down the line, and Pete Hegseth and others in the administration openly warned Mexico that you will either help do this or we will do it unilaterally because it affects our country. What Mexico began to do was to hand us, they started to crack down on cartels as a whole, and they started to hand us significant figures who we wanted. However, if you looked at it, the vast majority of them up until about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, were all of the opposition and all of the competition to Cartel Jalisco and El Mencho. So in an effort to appease us and look like they were taking it seriously, they were actually still helping El Mencho. They were protecting him, and they were taking out his adversaries as proof that they were serious about cartels. And a couple of months ago, we started to see them going after Cartel Jalisco. They took his number 3 guy, they gave him to the U.S. quickly because the last time he was arrested, he was let go, right? Immediately, a judge let him go. And so what happened was that they realized that you're either going to do this and help us, or the U.S. is going to do it alone, and the political fallout will be horrible for you if the U.S. takes unilateral military action in your country. And they decided to play ball and to actually roll the dice and go for it, and that's what they've done.
What is the fallout for us here in America? Because they have operatives all over the United States.
All over. I think that what we have to look at is we have to go back historically to what's happened with other cartels, right? Even though the other cartels did not have the level of power and influence that El Mencho had. But what happens is you have like the Gulf Cartel, who operates south of Texas along the Gulf of America, I call it. Some people say Gulf of Mexico still. They're antiquated, but I say Gulf of America. That cartel had centralized power of Mexico's central government. They had state power, all types of power. We began to decapitate them every time a leader popped his head up. And what you're left with is 10 to 15, glorified gangbanger units who really they no longer have central power over the central government of Mexico. They no longer really even have power over the state that they live in, Tamaulipas in Mexico. They just have county power and they're glorified gangs. And they still call themselves the Gulf Cartel, but they're so weakened at this point that they really don't have the type of power they've had historically. And that's what's probably going to happen here. There's going to be an uptick in violence, which liberals will blame on Trump, even though they're not crediting him with taking out the guy, right? That's what I meant by mental gymnastics. They'll blame the violence on Trump and on the United States, but there will be an uptick in violence as 4 or 5 different groups fight for power and fight for control. They'll become factionalized, and then we'll take out the heads of those groups, and then they'll become even more fractional and factionalized, and ultimately they'll no longer have central power over Mexico's government. And they'll no longer have that. They'll have regional power, and then we'll take them out. And then the next thing you know, they'll be reduced to having power over their block, their street. That's the goal. So the effects of this will be long. I do not think we'll see a lot of acts of narco-terrorism within the U.S. because of this. I don't know that, but I don't think so. I think that the statement made is that it doesn't matter how powerful you are. Like if you put yourself in a position to become the focus of the United States government, we can and will get you. And I think that this results in a lot of folks trying to keep their heads down and not being as ostentatious as El Mencho was when he was alive.
Are we going to see transformation of Mexico? Do you think do they have the stomach to finish this job, or is somebody else just going to step in?
Well, I think that's it's a great question, Glenn. I think that's going to depend on what we do in this country. If the next time we get a leader, if that leader is very left-leaning and soft on drugs and soft on crime, and if that leader is also soft on illegal migration, right? If that leader is soft on asylum claims and they allow tens of millions of people to show up at our border as they did in the last administration, keeping in mind that several of these cartels have business models that are primarily based on asylum claimants, right, and on illegal immigration. They were making as much or more, like various factions of the Gulf Cartel and Los Zetas was making as much or more from the people showing up at our border claiming asylum than they were making from drugs. So if we do things in this country that increase the pull factors and increase the economic engines for various Mexican cartels, then we're going to be in trouble. But if we continue to say in the best case scenario, right, say that we have J.D. Vance and he continues with the Trump policies and the Trump focus on Mexican cartels, I think that we have a very good shot at Mexico becoming a better place, which is very important for us because it affects us directly, right? You got to keep in mind, like Americans didn't want fentanyl, and then El Mencho began to manufacture fentanyl, right? El Mencho began to manufacture fentanyl, and then the desire for more of it, right? It was a push issue, not a demand issue. Obviously that's a complicated issue, but it was more of a push and not so much a demand that caused the supply. It was the supply that pushed the demand, and when it came to that. So it really just depends on what we do. But I can tell you this, if Mexico were going to become a better place, if our southern neighbor was going to get healthier, this is exactly what was required for that to happen. So this isn't the armistice. This isn't the end of the war. This isn't, Germany surrendering, but this is yesterday was definitely D-Day, right? And we definitely took land, and we definitely established a beachhead. And so I am very hopeful. I think this shows that the current Mexican president is actually trying to work with the U.S. No, I don't think she would have if it weren't for Trump's pressure. But regardless of that, this shows a serious step in the right direction.
Brandon, 45 seconds left. Talk directly to anybody who's thinking spring break's going to be great. I'm going to Mexico no matter what.
I would not allow my children to go to Mexico right now. I would not allow my children to go to even the safe areas like Cancun or Puerto Vallarta because they're obviously not safe. But keep in mind, those are economic engines for cartels. As they fight each other, they're going to try to hurt each other's economic engines, and you just might find yourself or your child or your college student caught in crossfire. I would not do that right now. I would wait a bit on going to Mexico.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Brandon. We'll talk again. Great job on calling this one. You bet. Bye-bye. Let me talk to you about rush tax. You almost never you almost never relax when you're dealing with the IRS. You don't get the sigh of relief when something shows up. Tax season is like a low-grade tension that hums around the background, especially if you're not sure everything is in perfect order. If you have questions that maybe you don't even know how to ask them, what you really want is somebody who's in your corner, somebody who knows the rules, understands the paperwork, can walk you through the process without making you feel like you're one misstep away from, a notice in the mail. This is where Rush Tax comes in. They'll help you prepare and file accurately, stay compliant, handle the details that most of us don't have time for or the stomach to do, or the ability to manage it on our own. When you mention my name, Rush is going to provide a free IRS transcript investigation. That's a service that others typically charge about $500 for without confirming that they can even help you first. Rush will give you this upfront and for free, and they'll only take your case if they know they can help you. Get a Rush tax attorney now. Protect yourself. Call 877-554-RUSH. That's 877-554-7874, or go to rushtaxresolution.com.
Glenn Beck.
Welcome back, Glenn Beck Insiders, and welcome back to the Torch Insider Show. I am Jason Butchell. A lot to go over with that interview, a lot more as far as how we actually solve this. There's actually a template to solve this problem with cartels right on our border. It wasn't always the case with how strong the cartels were in Mexico. They're starting to switch tactics, especially as we've seen over the past couple of days. And that might prove to be their downfall. I'll explain more in just a second. I want to say, if you are right now on a different platform watching us, you are about to lose access to the Insider segment. You don't want that. You don't want to miss out on everything happening in the comment section right now of the Torch stream. You want to see where we're going next. You want to get more insight into everything that Glenn is talking about. And there is a lot of stuff yet to be discussed that we will about to get to in the next couple of hours. Go to glennbeck.com/torch right now. Subscribe to the Torch. Become a founding member this month. You're going to get a ton of perks, plus an inflation-proof subscription for life, a ton of other stuff. But what's really super cool, I think, I'm kind of biased on our community right now in the Torch Insider chat. You're going to get access to the Torch Insider chat. That's where all the very good questions are happening. I'm going to read a couple of them right now. That's where all the good debates are happening. So you want to get in there right now. You're also going to get access to our library of other exclusive content just for you guys. You're also going to get a few other perks that the insiders know about. I'll drop that reminder for that number a little bit later, so you guys know if Glenn calls for some phoners, you guys know what happens then. So you have about 8 more minutes left before that goes away. So we're going to have a ton more extra time at the top of the hour. I got a lot of stuff, including the George AI Today. The George AI Today almost was kind of assuming that we'd see more on the Iran military front. We're still going to later in the week. I know there's another round of talks which are supposed to be hitting around Thursday. I don't think anything's going to happen probably until after that. I just don't see any new developments going in a peaceful direction in that manner. But today's George AI is going to be on war powers and what the founders thought about war powers specifically, checks and balances, everything. It's fascinating. I'm going to have an animated George for you at the top of the hour. Really, really good. Let's go to some of your comments right now. Well, actually, before we do that, on the conversation that Glenn just had with Brandon Darby, my opinion on this, nothing is going to change with these cartels. Nothing is going to change until Mexico decides suddenly that they're really going to do something about it, and the people that they establish in their government are uncompromisable. They're not going to give in to bribes. They're not going to give whatever. They're going to be uncompromisable, and that is the only way. This is. Have you watched Narcos? There's a lot of stuff that's just whatever, dramatizations in Narcos or whatever, but the history behind the cartels and how it got to Mexico is very, very interesting. It started in, I can't remember, some other smaller country like Peru or something, I can't remember. The government finally decided they were going to be uncompromisable. They brutally shut it down. Then it jumped to Colombia. It stayed in Colombia for a long time. They were the big dogs. Then suddenly there was, I think, Operation Plan Colombia or whatever, late 90s, early 2000s, where they shut it down brutally, took out leaders, took out processing areas. They decimated the cartels. Then it moved to Mexico. It happens time and time again. But Mexico has to make this decision. We can help them. Anyway, I'll have a lot more of that at the top of the hour, including some of your comments. Right now, Glenn ends out the hour right now.
Learn the past and decode the present by joining the Torch community at glennbeck.com/torch.
All right. By the way, if you have a Torch, membership, you can get access to all of any show we've ever done. I think coming soon, any show I've ever done, any book that I've ever written, everything is going to be up for Torch subscribers soon. But if you want to see the podcast we were just talking about with Brandon Darby, it is so important that you watch this one. It's available. We'll repost it at YouTube and make it available today, YouTube.
Welcome back, Glenn Beck Insiders, and welcome back to the Torch Insider Show. I am Jason Buttrill. Best segment of the day, because this is probably the longest we get to talk and go through some of this stuff, and there is a lot to go through. There's still a lot within the show that we have yet to really talk about. Glenn really hasn't talked about the hockey game much. First Olympic gold since the Miracle on Ice for Team USA Hockey. Did anyone know that? I had no clue it had been that long of a drought. That is wild. I hope we get into more of that, because I actually had this feeling yesterday of, I don't know, we just haven't felt that for a while. There was it was kind of a feel that we were being galvanized and brought together over, some national pride. And then there were a few media outlets that were trying to pump the brakes and basically say, no, continue to be angry at your country, continue to be angry at your neighbor. It was kind of disgusting. I hope we get further into that. I've talked earlier about, I don't know if Glenn's going to have time for this, but early voting trends in Texas are not looking too amazing. We have really got to get on that. Hopefully we have time for that. If not, I'm going to show you a little bit more of that. Tariffs. What happens next with the tariffs? What is going on? Again, so much stuff in the news to talk about. If Glenn doesn't get to that, I'll get to more of that. Last week, we went over it a little bit, some of the things that the Trump administration can do. Now that we've had time to look over some of Justice Kavanaugh's dissent, he pretty much said exactly the same thing and laid out a template to, okay, you don't want to green light this? Trump administration, this is what you have to do. He didn't say it in those words, but basically said it in those words. Also, another crazed guy with a gun went to Mar-a-Lago. This is getting ridiculous at this point. This is the sad state that we are in this country. But it did happen, and so Glenn's got some comments on that as well. That and a whole lot more is coming up in the next 2 hours. I've got a George AI that I'm going to preview for you in a couple minutes. I just want to round out this Mexico talk and get this over with. Jim Mary said Doctors Without Borders is an anti-American outfit and has been for a while. I don't know the context of what you guys were talking about, probably with bringing the illegals across the border and that thing that I read for you about how the Mexican government issues transit visas to allow illegal migrants to come through from wherever the heck in the world where they land, probably down in the Darien Gap somewhere. They travel through all these different countries. They get to Mexico. The Mexican government would hand them these transit visas and be like, go ahead, go straight to Mexico. Inadvertently, not even inadvertently, they knew what they were doing. They know that the cartels control the borders. They knew they were issuing transit visas to get to the cartels so that these people could then pay the cartels, make them rich, fund their empire so that they could then get to the United States. And also, were they doing security checks on these? Were these foreign nationals that have ever been involved in terror organizations? Well, yeah, because we've seen multiple people on the terror watch list. They were the ones coming across the border. So all of this stuff is working together. I'm assuming Jim Mary's comment was similar to was something revolving around that with Doctors Without Borders. That reminded me of, do you remember this? Producer Matt, throw this up on the screen. This was something that Muckraker released. This was back in 2023, back at the height of the Biden administration's catastrophe on the border as millions were coming across. This is a map that was distributed by Doctors Without Borders, basically showing if you want to get into this country, you land somewhere like down here in the Darien Gap. If you land somewhere around here, these are all the different places where you can meet up, where you can get food, where you can get shelter. You follow these routes. You get up in here into Mexico. You follow this route. There's a hospital you can use. There's phones you can use. All of this stuff. And then you get across the border. I mean, absolutely insane. I've got other maps. This came from a show that we did with Glenn probably in 2024-ish, something around then. There are more maps distributed, some of them coming directly from organizations connected to the UN, showing the exact same thing. So all the NGOs that we used to think were just, they're just about doctors, they're about helping people. You know, they're just about providing medical care. Or, this is about some civil society organizations, which now are pretty much code for advancing progressive leftism all over the globe. They've all been involved with this in some way. Have they all? And to what end? Are they getting money? Are there other politicians within our own country that have also been getting? I mean, before we look at Mexico and just say how many people in the Mexican government are involved with this, are there those within our own country as well? Have you ever been to El Paso? El Paso scares the crap out of me. But why? This is why El Paso scares the crap out of me, because for multiple years, it has been judged one of the safest cities in the country. You go there, it looks clean, it looks fine. You would never guess that right over the border crossing, Juarez is one of the most dangerous cities in the entire world. If you cross over there and you drive through some neighborhoods, you probably will see someone dangling lifeless from an overpass somewhere down one of those cities. It is scary. But how can you go from the most dangerous to the safest and most clean? Probably because there's some corruption going on. Probably. I'd like to know all of this. One day, maybe come out and exposed. Possibly. But it's only till then, as we've seen in the past in countries like Colombia. Before that, whatever other country some of these cartels came from, it goes from one country to the next, to the next, to the next. It has to be fully eradicated. There has to be a system where they say enough is enough. We're doing something about this and getting rid of it. The problem is, at this point, on the Mexican side, they haven't reached that point yet. For who knows why. There's a lot of money involved. And maybe also certain places within our own country. Maybe they're making a lot of money too. Maybe it's more than maybe it's not just money. Maybe it's also political clout, political weaponization. They can use that as well. It's all happening. It needs to stop. Possibly, they're starting to. Oh, and I mentioned before that some of these cartels are doing different things now that may go towards their demise. In Colombia, when we started looking at the cartels there and trying to get rid of them, going after people like Pablo Escobar, the Mexicans noticed that the Colombians were doing something that they shouldn't be doing, which drove a lot of attention to them, which basically was terrorist-type tactics. They were blowing buildings up. They were doing assassinations, things like that, overt things against legitimate targets like government targets or even civilian targets. The Colombians were doing that. The Mexicans said, a criminal underworld, said that those are the things we're going to stay away from. We're going to try and promote better business, do all this stuff in between other rival cartels. We'll be violent with them, but we'll stay away from the other legitimate targets. The Mexican cartel threw that out the window yesterday. They were attacking civilians. They were attacking civilian targets. A big no-no for business. They might have overstepped there. But this is a developing story. It's going to go a lot further. Let's see here. Meg and NC. Californians moved to Texas and they brought the blue with them. Plus, you have all those immigrants coming and voting illegally, and you've got the Islamists coming in and voting and taking over the state. Probably talking about the Texas early voting results. And I 100% agree with you. In Texas, it's maddening. We get tons of people coming over from places like Is this? Did I talk that long? I didn't even get to George AI. I'll get to George AI at the top of the next hour. It's a long one today. It's like 3 minutes. But yes, they come over. They say they're tired of the big taxes. They come over here and they vote the exact same way. It's absolutely stupid. Just stupid. If that's what you want, stay where you came from. You're fine with staying there. We're happy for you. Continue to vote the way you want to vote. Just don't do it in red states. It's dumb. Spencer, 30 seconds. Drugs are bad. The only way to help is to legalize and regulate so legit corporations take over, pay taxes, and create rehab programs instead of enforcement officers. I used to think that way in my hardcore libertarian days. I don't really believe that way anymore because everywhere that happens, the society goes to crap. I've seen New York, places in New Mexico. It just smells like weed everywhere. I don't know. I don't believe that anymore. I used to. Glenn comes out with the top of hour 2. It's coming up now.
Of entertainment, enlightenment, and empowerment. This is the Glenn Beck Program.
Glenn Beck is on! Oh, I've been waiting for this since the U.S. hockey team scored. Yesterday they brought home the gold, and it felt good. But there is something different about this. I mean, it felt good when the women's hockey team did it to Canada. You know, part of it, I guess, is, Canada. But I think there are 4 or 5 reasons why this is particularly playing differently with the American people, and they all revolve around Jack Hughes. And I'll get to that here in 60 seconds. First, let me tell you about the Berna launcher. You're sitting there in the police station, cuffs, your hands are in cuffs. Someone's coming in asking questions about what happened earlier tonight. You're not going to work tomorrow. Most likely, you don't really even know what tomorrow is going to hold at all. It was an act of self-defense. You know that, but the police don't know that, at least not yet. And depending on where you live, they may never know that. You can justify it in your mind all you want, but what is the real deal? You shot somebody, and it was lethal. That may or may not have been the thing to do, and the court will decide, and your life is hell for the next year or so. The Berna launcher was made for this very situation and so many others. It gives you a way to protect yourself and your family without using a firearm. It is legal in all 50 states. It does not require a permit anywhere. It uses CO2 to launch powerful, non-lethal projectiles designed to stop a threat and create an opportunity for you to get to safety. Right now, Berna is offering 10% off site-wide, so go right now to byrna.com/Glenn and learn more. Try before you buy at a Sportsman's Warehouse location near you. You can find one at byrna.com/Glenn. So last night was fabulous, or yesterday was fabulous, when we found out that the U.S. hockey team won the